Hi, my name is Elizabeth and I'm the designer over here at mammacandoit.com. Today we're going to start a sew along on my Adalynn dress design. You are going to love this design as much as I do. It comes together so easily whether you are a beginner or a professional. Let's go get started. This is day one of the Adalynn A-line. I just wanted to start by talking about fabric. So this is a cotton jersey. This one here is a 50% stretch, and I want to talk about how to calculate stretch using the tutorial from mammacandoit.com. So as you can see here, this is actually going to be in your tutorial, and it's so nice to be able to print and have it for calculating easily. So what you're going to want to do is lay out your fabric so that the grain is going vertically like this, and that against the grain is going to be how we're going to measure it. This is a two-way stretch fabric, which means that this way doesn't stretch, the vertical way, but that the horizontal way does. So what we're going to do first is we're going to fold it like this in half. So we're actually measuring two different layers at the same time. And then what I'm going to do is at the end of this, where it says original length, I'm just going to pinch it here, and then I'm going to pinch it here. And then I'm just going to stretch until I feel some resistance. Now this here says that it's at 60%. That means it's 60% stretch. So I'm going to be good because I want to have at least 50% stretch. Other fabrics that have 50% stretch are fabrics like French terry, different cotton lycras will be more than 50% usually. Cotton spandex, which is really the same thing as cotton lycra, is also more than 50%. Just as long as you have 50% stretch and at least a two-way stretch. The difference between a two-way stretch and a four-way stretch, this fabric right here is a double brushed poly. I like this one a lot too. I love the little ladybugs. It's so soft. But this here, this has a four-way stretch. As you can see, both ways is there a stretch. So if we put my little measuring tool over here and we go with the grain, let's just see how we're at. Fold it in half like this. So it's about a 60% with the grain. And then against the grain is about an 80%. Although this fabric is wonderful to use for the Adalynn dress, I definitely want to use something with just a two-way stretch because where I live is actually pretty chilly, and so I want to have a warm cotton dress. You could totally use a double brushed poly or something with more stretch. It will sit looser on your subject. After we decide what fabric we're going to use, we're going to have to cut our pieces. As you can see, I've got my back piece, my front piece, my sleeve. I'm doing long sleeves today. Actually, I have two pieces here. I had folded the fabric prior to cutting, and so I cut both pieces at one time so they mirror each other. Both sleeves do. I have my binding strip here, and I have 4 pocket pieces. And again, while the fabric was folded, just like with the sleeves, I cut a set of pockets for this one and a set of pockets for this one. And then you can see too, this is the front piece, and I had cut it on the fold like that. But I want to talk a little bit about fabric markings when you cut. So while I have the pattern piece on my fabric, I also like to add in my fabric markings. And normally I cut notches for those markings because I already have the scissors in hand, and I feel like that is easier than transferring markings with a pen or fabric marking pen or Sharpie or anything like that. So let's talk about the binding strip first. When I cut the binding strip, I used the pattern piece like this. And you'll see that on the pattern piece there are your seams here where you're going to be sewing it together, but then there's also 3 notches on there. One is the notch for the center, and this is the center front, and then 2 of the notches are also for your quarter points. Now you can count, this is only 1, 2, 3, but for the rest, for the quarter of the quarter point. The fourth one, that's actually going to be when you sew this neck binding together, the seam that will be here on the end, that will be your fourth quarter point, and that is always to go in the back. It really helps, especially when husbands are dressing our kids, to know where the back is if I don't use a tag. So there's no fabric markings on the pocket, so I'm going to set those aside. But there are markings on the sleeve, and so I want to talk about that. So I don't know if you can see it in the video, but right here there is one notch, and this is going to be for your front of the dress. There's a notch right in the middle, and this one here is actually for the seam of your dress. And then there's two notches right here, and this is for the back of your dress. So when we're going to be putting our pattern or our pieces together, we're going to know which way is the back of the sleeve, which way is the front of the sleeve, and then this center point will be already marked for us, so we can just pin it or clip it into place easily. So I'm going to set this aside too. And then I want to talk about the front piece here. And the front piece and the back piece are they both have the same markings. So we're going to start here on the side, and there are two markings on each side, and these are for our pocket placement. If you're not going to use pockets, feel free to not notch these two areas. Although even if you're not going to use a pocket, it is still really helpful to be able to line up your sewing properly when we're connecting our side seams. So there's two notches, there's a notch here and a notch here on this side, and then there's a notch here and a notch here on this side. And then when we go to place our pocket on here, it will actually line right up. So the notch is at the very edge of the pocket, and this notch is at the very edge of the pocket. So it's a perfect way to line up your pockets. So then other notches that we have on this pattern are on the armholes right here. So this is the front, and so there's only one notch right here. And when we look at the sleeve, the front only has one notch on the sleeve like that. So that is where we will line it up. Then also on the neckline, there is a notch here and a notch here, and those are going to be our quarter points for our binding, our neck binding. So when we do put on our neck binding, it's important to have those there for an easy way to be able to find where we're going to attach our binding at. So I'm going to set the front aside now, and I just want to look at the back really quick so you can see the difference and similarities. So here you're going to see I have two notches on this side for the pockets. I have two notches right here for that pocket, but then you're going to see here on the sleeve holes that there's two notches. And remember, there's two notches here, 1, 2, and then 1, 2 right here. And if you remember with the sleeves, get just one here, the front has one notch, the center has one notch, and then the back has two notches. So then when we are attaching our sleeve to our armhole, you can see that the double notches will line right up right here as we're attaching it. So I'll set that aside as well. Okay, so I guess from here we are going to go on to day 2. Thanks for watching.